I'm really excited to have my next guest on the podcast. She's the Chief Executive Officer at HomeSpace Society. Great leader. Welcome to the podcast, Bernadette Majdell.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right into it. Perhaps you could let the listeners know who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Bernadette Majdell, and I'm with HomeSpace. And we are a nonprofit housing developer, owner, and operator in the affordable housing sector here in Calgary.
Awesome. And offline, we are talking a little bit about the recent project you finished, I believe the Neoma project, where you're
Yes.
converting vacant office space to affordable housing. Perhaps you could talk more about that.
Oh, I'd love to. It's my favorite thing to talk about these days is Neoma. So Neoma is the former Dome Petroleum headquarters here in Calgary that had been sitting vacant, like many other buildings downtown Calgary, for the last few years. And just over a year ago, we started the renovation of the building to create a new home for the in from the cold, as well as 82 units of affordable housing. So we took this old, very old building and turned it into something super functional and beautiful and bright and vibrant that will bring families and kids back to the downtown core, which we're super excited about.
That's awesome. Before we move further, I'd be interested to know how you got to your current role today, being the CEO of HomeSpace. Perhaps you could share a little bit of how you got to where got here from the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was an interesting journey for me, and I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. And just almost 6 years ago, we were creating HomeSpace as a brand new organization, and I was on the board of directors helping to do that. And one of our board colleagues just said, it's really important that this organization succeed for the work that we're going to do moving forward. And given your background, I think you should look at leading it. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure that that's really the role for me. But, it was compelling. It was a compelling argument. And the work that we were doing was important. And I was very passionate about it. So, it was just one of those things where the right moment in time and the right opportunity. And so it was, some people's journey so linear around, I got my education, I applied here, but I think in this case, it was just one of these things that was meant to be for me.
Awesome. So HomeSpace is a charitable real estate developer. What's maybe a big thing that HomeSpace does that people don't know about?
I think it's really around the impact that we have. And I think that, when we talk about affordable housing, there's lots of conversation around NIMBY. There's, our neighbors are hesitant when we're moving into their neighborhood around what who our residents might be and what challenges they're coming with. But I think the one thing that people don't know about is just the impact that we have on the lives of the people that we house. I'm a big believer, and history and data and all that stuff shows that nobody can move forward in their life if they don't have a safe, affordable place to call home. And once you've got that, then everything else can be looked at. So if you've got employment challenges, if you're struggling with mental health or addiction, the ability to be safe will forever change your life moving forward. And I think that's really the one thing that people lose sight of in the work that we do.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Being part of the real estate industry, what would you say the biggest challenge is with the work that you do?
Well, on the real estate side, the biggest challenge is just the changing environment in Calgary. It just seems to be, it's always a new challenge, whether it's right now, supply chain issues, labor challenges, when we're in the boom, it's just availability, cost escalations, that kind of stuff. So I think it's so unpredictable, and it's a market that things can kind of change really quickly in. So it's not for the faint of heart, and that's why we really created this model of focusing on the real estate for affordable housing because it is challenging. And so developing is one aspect, but once we've opened, like Neoma last week, we now hand it over to our property management side. And with property management, again, it's very unpredictable. There's always something crazy happening at one of our buildings, and so I think it's just so unpredictable.
Absolutely. You'd mentioned not for the faint of heart. So how do you build resilience in times of challenge? Obviously, there's ups and downs as a leader and leading a business. So how do you build that again resilience, that coming back from challenge?
So I think the probably one of the biggest things for me is leading by example. Showing up every day, being open and honest and transparent about kind of what some of the challenges are. We really try to build a safe environment in our workspace for our team to be able to, be vulnerable, to express emotions, and to struggle, kind of in our office environment. Um, and then beyond that, we try to have fun, and I think that's one of the things that will offset some of those challenges. Is just trying to be together as a team, have a bit of fun. We had everything yesterday. It was our anniversary event, and we had Julie Van Rosenthal do a cooking demonstration for us, and just trying to come together in different ways and really appreciate and show gratitude for each other to come out on the other side. Because during the pandemic, we being in the business we're in and owning properties, we had frontline team that showed up every single day in a really kind of scary world in the beginning of the pandemic. So coming out on the other side of that and just being able to be together as a team and show gratitude for what we've kind of come through together, and have a little fun while we're doing it.
No, that's awesome. Speaking of gratitude and team, what does success look like to you? It could be professionally, personally, but what does success look like?
Oh, I think uh, there's this grand vision of success. I think personally, it's where we can house our most vulnerable in a safe way, um, and in a way that helps them improve their life and move towards their life goals. And I think that professionally, ultimately, that's what success looks like. But that creates changing a community in some cases around accepting what we're doing and the benefits of what we do. Um, personally, I think it's just I've got a family and a son and friends, and it's just really nurturing those relationships and making sure everyone in kind of my world is happy and healthy. And I think that's really on a personal level what it looks like. But I think it's interesting. One of our favorite movies as a family is 10,000 BC, and one of the reasons why is it talks about some people build a small circle around themselves where it's just their immediate family, and then other people build kind of bigger circles where they include more in their life. And for us, that's important as a family to be like to think about our community and our networks on a bigger scale. So I think for me, it's making sure that bigger circle that we all live in is moving towards something better.
Mm. It sounds like just having that positive influence within your personal life and also in your community life, if you will, just making sure everybody is happy and has what they need.
Yeah, that's exactly. You said it much shorter than I did.
Speaking of family, how do you have work life balance as CEO of a company? Obviously, the business has challenges or needs that you have to fulfill, and then also you have the family aspect as well. So, how do you balance those two things? Because sometimes it's difficult for me. So, I'd love to know from other leaders and experts like yourself how you manage to balance your time.
I think it's some days there is no balance, and I think that's really the thing to acknowledge is some days you get to have family time, and your schedule allows that, where you can carve out kind of some unique time. And some days you just don't get to have that. So the balance may not be every single day, but I think it's important to do it on kind of the on a bigger scale. So for me, it's just and also being, I think, forgiving of yourself and flexible in what balance looks like. I mean, a lot of times with my son's schedule, for example, I'll have to leave work early, but then I'll work later into the evening. And so, especially when he was little, I did that a lot because it was so important to spend time with him. And they went to bed so early, so it was, would spend that kind of quality time earlier in the evening, get him to bed, and then I would work after that, and that's what worked for me. And I think it's just really as a family, and finding what works for you as a family. My husband and I always we loved it when our son was little because he went to bed early, and then we would have some time together. Now he stays up later than we do, and so it's different trying to create that family balance. But I think it's really just understanding that balance will vary. Right now, we were getting ready for the opening of our building last week, and so there was I had work to do, and so there was a real focus on that. And now we're coming into Thanksgiving weekend where we can just spend some time together as a family. So I think it's just acknowledging balance will vary as you go through life.
No, I love that. Just that it's very fluid and dynamic, and you never know, or you're never going to be perfect. Just accepting that and just doing your best to
Yeah.
balance the best of your ability. For inspiration, do you find inspiration through reading or listening to content? What sort of things have inspired you recently?
Um, I for inspiration, for me, it's closer to home, around just talking to the people that we work with, and stories of trauma and triumph coming from that, and just the people. So for me, I get a lot of inspiration just with the work that I do. So if I'm not working or kind of with our family, I a ton of leadership books and stuff like that to try to develop individually. But truthfully, I really like true crime stuff, so I don't get much inspiration from there, thankfully.
Yeah.
But that's my downtime when I'm commuting, is usually some kind of very random podcast there. But a lot of times it's just reading some professional development for sure, and just surrounding myself with great people, and whether that's professionally or personally, is seems to be kind of a constant source of inspiration.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the true crime genre as well. My wife actually got me into them, so it's definitely on my podcast queue.
We'll have to share podcasts,
Exactly.
so make sure I'm not missing any good ones out there.
Absolutely. So, in terms of what you're curious about right now, is there anything that's top of mind in the city or professionally or personally that you could share?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think for me, I'm curious to see how our city will develop. I think coming out of the pandemic, so many people learned so many things, and we're getting people really back downtown and into the core now. And so I'm really curious to see, as a people, how we evolve going through what we did, in terms of what we value, and just seeing the impact of people coming back and getting back together in person, and how that'll evolve who we are, and the lessons that we learn. Yeah, I think that's what I'm most curious about, to see how we come out on the other side of what everybody's been through the last few years.
Absolutely. Speaking of that topic, how has Calgary changed when you first started to today?
Oh, it's been interesting because through our work, but even through my time in Calgary, it's completely changed. When I started in this work, we're in the middle of a boom, and so every office was building. There were, cranes everywhere, and there was just so much going on. And then having seen, working downtown with, a 30% vacancy rate in office building, and just, you could feel being downtown, you could feel like the absence of vibrancy, and then now again coming out of it, where our economy is starting to turn around and things are getting better, and you've got people coming back down. Like, it's just so it's been this really kind of crazy roller coaster since we started in this work, and kind of going through so many different cycles. But I think, earlier you asked about resiliency, and I think that's the one thing that's kind of been really interesting, is that regardless of what's happening, people adapt and, kind of step up and keep going. And I think that's been what's been most interesting to watch happen.
I love that. Just adapt and keep going. It sounds like the theme of the podcast of a lot of leaders. Just gotta be resilient and adapt to challenges. But no, I love that. I only have a couple more questions here for you, Bernadette. One question I love to ask my guests all the time is, what's maybe one question that you never get asked that you wish you would be asked?
Oh, that's a tough question.
A little bit of a head scratcher.
I think the one thing is, which I rarely get asked, is, why I do this work. Because it can be very challenging. And I think that's probably one of the things, because I think, why, and, there's been a lot of stuff around, the golden circle and starting with the why. And I think that's, meant in a professional capacity, but I think it's really important in a personal capacity. So I think, for me personally, I rarely get asked why I personally choose to do this work.
So you can imagine my next question.
Why do I?
Why do you choose to do this work?
So I grew up in Nova Scotia, and I was born in Cape Breton, and a family there, and grew up in Halifax, Dartmouth. And I don't recall when we were growing up seeing really visible homelessness, because as a community, when somebody suffered, whether it be a loss in a family member or a job or something like that, like, the community just rallied around individuals. And I'm sure there was kind of the invisible homelessness when I was growing up, but I just, the importance of building community and stuff like that was just, I didn't realize it until I moved out here, and where there's a very visible homeless population, and people who are struggling with mental health and addiction. And talking, as I mentioned earlier, like, inspiration from talking to some of our residents and the trauma that they've experienced that got them to where they were, and this lack of resiliency in many cases, where they didn't have a network and a group of people to rely on. And I think it's our job as individuals to try to help those who need it most, and whether it's in the work we do or personally. And so I think for me, just knowing how important housing is, and I think that's being able to provide somebody with safety and hope, and that's why I personally choose to work in this sometimes super challenging space.
I love that. I love your insights and providing the audience with some really great stories and experience. I only have my last question to you. What are you proud of? I guess you kind of already answered this, but what are you proud of that we haven't maybe touched on so far in the interview?
I'm just on a personal level, I'm really proud of my family and, like, where they're at today. My relationships that I've got, and personally, just so proud of the team that we work with. And this just dedicated group of individuals who do very hard work every day, and with a smile on their face, and with a joke, and just being able to really impact the people we serve. And so I think I'm just so proud of our team here. And from an actual thing, I'm incredibly proud of our office conversion. It's on 7th Avenue and 6th Street, right in the downtown core. And it's, I think, the prettiest building downtown. So, it a challenging accomplishment, but to finish a project like that on time, on budget, and really produce something beautiful that's going to have an incredible impact. No, and that's why we picked Neoma. Neoma means new beginnings or new moon, and it's a new beginning for this building, for the downtown core, and for the residents who live there. So, professionally, we're super proud of that. Ask me something in a month, it'll be something different, but we just opened the building. So
well, I'll definitely keep an eye out and watch out for that. What's something the listeners can do to help support the mission, you or HomeSpace?
I think it's a wide range. Obviously we're a charitable organization, so we'll always accept donations. But I think beyond that, it's really just supporting projects in different communities throughout the city. And I think it's just maybe taking a beat when they see something that, that's perhaps unpleasant, and just understanding that you don't know the journey that got people to where they are today. Nobody wakes up and chooses to be homelessness or to be struggling. And so I think it's just showing a little bit of compassion for the unknown and what's happening in our community.
Love that. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, Bernadette. I hope you've had a blast like myself speaking with you. Where can our listeners connect with you online if they want to reach out?
Our website is homespace.org, and all of our contact information is there. And thanks so much for having me today. You're really a joy to have a chat with, so I appreciate it.
Appreciate that. And my actual last question to end the podcast is, what does being a leader or leadership mean to you?
Oh, being a leader is just really kind of showing up every day, trying to do your best for those around you. Hi, I'm Bernadette Majdell, and you're listening to Joe Momoh Presents.
Thanks again for watching the Joe Momoh Presents podcast. For more episodes, check out joemomoh.com/podcasts. All right, see you next time.